שלום, ניהאו, ברוכים הבאים ללהבין את סין, הערוץ שלכם לכל מה שצריך לדעת על המעצמה שתעצב את המאה ה-21, והפעם, כמו בכל שנה לפני ראש שנה סיני, אנחנו נדבר על ראש השנה הסיני. עוד רגע מתחילה שנת הנחש, שנה שאמורה להביא איתה הרבה דברים טובים, התחלות חדשות, זמן לתכנון רחוק ולכוונן את עצמנו מחדש, ולכבוד השיחה הזאת הפעם חשבתי שאולי יהיה מעניין להביא איזה טוויסט אחר קצת, כי הקלטנו כבר פרקים שבהם אנחנו מדברים על המסורות של החג, ואתם אולי שמעתם, ואם לא אתם מוזמנים ללכת לשמוע. לפעם אנחנו נארח את גארי צ'ן. גארי הוא בעצם ממוצא סיני, הוא גר בניו יורק, נולד בניו יורק, ניו יורק היא בכל רמ"ח איבריו, אבל המשפחה שלו מסין, והם כמובן חוגגים את ראש שנה הסיני. אנחנו נדבר על המסורות, ובעצם על איך נראה החג הזה של ראש שנה הסיני, דווקא בקהילה הסינית בניו יורק, שהיא קהילה גדולה ומכובדת. אז הנה אנחנו מתחילים. Hello, ni hao, and welcome to our podcast, Gary. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Yuval. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Happy to have this conversation, feeling pretty festive with the Chinese New Year coming, just in a couple of days now. Yeah.
Yes. I spent the whole weekend cleaning up my place, cleaning everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, one of the things that is also, I always say that Chinese New Year is a bit like the Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah, our New Year, and Pesach, which is like the basically the spring holiday. And Chinese New Year is kind of like these two holidays combined. And
Blended
one of the
together.
things really also this idea of cleaning everything really well, like do this annual thorough cleaning. Of course, everybody cleans all the time, but this one has like a special festive cleaning vibe to it, right?
It's different because it's intentional, because you want to get rid of everything from the last year so that we could bring in new energy, good luck for the new year. So that's why we set the intention to clean everything and bring in good stuff for the coming new year for us. Yeah. So a thorough cleaning, surfaces, cabinets, and like everything gets cleaned out. Yeah.
Time to move the couch, move the bed, find all the heating bits of dust and stuff.
Right.
All right. So we'll talk about all these traditions and celebrations and so on. But maybe before, just so the audience get a bit of sense of your heritage and cultural background, Gary. So I was saying in the intro, you were born and raised in New York, but your parents came to New York from China or partly Malaysia, but ethnically Chinese. Could you explain a bit?
Yeah, so basically I was born and raised in New York City, but my parents, both of them were from southern China, from the Guangdong province, the city of Dongguan. And basically my dad and my mom was both born and raised there, but my mom is ethnically Chinese, her family side, and they're from Malaysia, and they moved to China at some point in the 1940s. Okay. Yeah. So my mom is the only one that basically grew up in China. Yeah.
And
the rest
her
of her
family is from Chinese heritage, but lived in Malaysia for several generations.
Yeah, for several generations, at least three. Yeah, at least three. Yeah, two or three. Yeah.
And so, your father was born and raised in Dongguan as well?
Yes.
So they met in Dongguan actually, and then came to the US together?
Together in the early 80s, yeah. So it's interesting. I've been there myself. I actually went there when I was 6 years old for a Chinese New Year's there.
Really?
It's a little bit more different, the Chinese New Year's in China than the Chinese New Year's in the United States. Because obviously it's like a 14-day celebration. So every day there, it's actually like a different theme. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the eve, and then there's like the first day, and then the second day, and each day the meals are different. Yeah.
Right.
So one day we'll have like a chicken, the next day we'll have like a fish, the other day we'll have like
Yeah.
a pork. And obviously China has like some weird foods, like some delicacies, and sometimes they'll have like the rabbit or the snake, and it's kind of like, and
Yeah.
so on
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so on and so on. So that's how my family in China did it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But here, like my mom tries to keep up with the tradition. Like she'll have like, the eve meal, the first meal, which the first meal usually is the chicken. Yeah, that's the most important thing. And then my mom also has a meal
On
that's
the
completely vegan. Yeah, which is I think the second night. Yeah.
All right, because
So,
important to say you're vegan. I think your sister's vegan as well, or
yeah,
is she?
yeah. She's also
Yeah.
vegan. So it's quite challenging for my mom to like make dishes for us now, but she tries to improvise, and tries to
Yeah.
make it from the traditional recipes that was passed down from her mom, and she tries to
Uh-huh.
kind of put a spin on it. But
Yeah.
yeah. But it's really interesting because I was just thinking about it before I came on here that I did experience Chinese years in China, and the
Yeah.
experience here in the States is a little different. Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Like I know of, the New Year's Eve celebration, then the New Year's Day meal. I know of those two
Mm-hmm.
meals, but you say it's actually ongoing for quite a while. And I guess probably also in the
Yeah.
80s, it wasn't as easy to travel around China like a lot of the folks are doing in China today, because today, it's like it's probably a few days really of the family gathering, but then everybody goes traveling wherever around China or abroad and so on. But
Yeah.
and in the US, you say in New York, the way you experience it is it's definitely there, but it's not as elaborative, I should say, in terms of all the
Yeah.
different traditions and so on.
Yeah, especially like meals in like my family. It's usually we have it for like 4 nights. Yeah, instead of like
Hmm.
the 14 days. But
Uh-huh.
the celebration does continue like every weekend, like in the Chinatowns in New York, whether it's in Manhattan or Brooklyn or in Queens, you'll have the lion dance or the dragon dance like every weekend,
Right.
like on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, so
Oh,
it
nice.
continues. Yeah, it's a little different here, especially with the meals, especially if we go to our family member's house. They don't have the meals for like 14 days, but it's usually like between like 4 to 6 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tonight we'll have our first meal, and then we'll
Oh,
do it
okay.
for like we'll do it for the next 4 or 5 days. Yeah.
So we're
And
recording on Monday the 27th, and actually tomorrow the 28th is officially Chinese New Year's Eve, right?
Eve, yeah.
But you start
Hmm.
even a day earlier, you say.
Yeah, we started a day early. So I don't know if like other Chinese people do that too, but in my family, we usually do like New Year's Eve dinner, and
Yeah,
then we'll
yeah,
do
yeah.
the Eve, and then we'll do the first day. Yeah.
So how does it go usually? I mean, of course, with the vegan menu, it's probably like you said, there's a twist on the usual dishes. But what do you know what's going to be served tonight? Is it already known and clear, or might you
Well,
get surprises?
I know that tonight the first night that there will be a chicken. Usually there's three chickens for the Eve, and then the Eve, and then the New Year's Day. So there's going to be a lot of meat dishes. So these are dishes that was passed down from my grandmother on my mom's side. So she
Mm.
remakes these dishes. Um, when I had them as a kid, they were really weird. There were a lot of delicacies.
Hmm.
There was like, and I think there was like a giant oyster that's like serenaded in like, I don't know what this sauce is. I think it might be
Uh-huh.
like fish sauce or something like that. It's like this
Okay.
big. And then it's like wrapped out around in lettuce. And from what I remember is that, the oyster represents a heart. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we want to bring in love into New Year and stuff like that. That's why we have that. Okay.
Nice.
And then
Uh-huh.
the chicken traditionally in Chinese culture is a representation of like wealth and abundance and good luck. So we have
Uh-huh.
that for like 3 days straight. And then there's these other dishes that my mom's makes. This is really weird. It's like potato with celery, and she does it in the wok. Yeah, it's like a really
Really?
weird
Okay.
combo, but
Yeah.
it's a recipe that was passed down from like my grandmother's mother, and then and so on
Wow.
and so on and so on. She just kept it going. Yeah, and then another thing that she makes is this like it's like this clear noodle. I don't know what it's called. And it's like mixed with like, mushrooms and like
Oh, yeah,
carrots,
yeah.
and it's like a mixed vegetable with this clear thin noodle. I don't know what it's called.
Like a
Yeah.
thick one or a very thin one?
It's like a very thin one. It's like a clear noodle.
It's like
Yeah.
bean based noodles, noodles made from beans
I,
or
I,
something.
I, I think it might be bean or soy based or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, she'll make that. She'll also have like sometimes she'll have like a fish or something like that, and sometimes she'll have pork.
Hmm.
But over the years, as they've gotten older, she's simplified it because they're older and they don't want to put too much effort into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are the dishes that I remember clearly. I'm pretty sure that the big oyster will be there tonight. I'm pretty
All
sure.
right.
Yeah. And usually on Chinese New Year's, we have to have dinner at exactly 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because we also like
Which is
talk.
kind of a Chinese tradition in general. Like lunch is at 12 and dinner is at
Yeah,
6. But
yeah,
on New Year's Eve, you
yeah.
have to be very punctual.
Yeah, also like in Chinese culture, the even numbers are very important to Chinese people, and usually, I mean, not the number four, but it
Yeah,
has to
number
be at
four is
like a even number time. Like it has to be at like okay, it has to
right.
be at noon. It has to be at 6. Also like 6, it's kind of like the 6 in numerology is a representation of balance. Yeah, so we want to have
Mm.
like dinner at a balanced time. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Yeah, that's cool. That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I know there is a thing for the audience that doesn't know, really with even numbers in China in general. And like you said, I think four is the only exception before because four
Hmm.
is pronounced very similar to how you say death,
To
basically.
death, yeah.
Yeah. So that's out of the
Hmm.
question. Just like in uh elevators in some Christian countries, you won't see the 13th floor. It would be missing. So in a lot of the
Yeah.
Chinese hotels, you won't have floor number 4.
4.
You'd go
Yeah.
from 3 straight to 5.
Yeah.
And I think 8 is considered like the luckiest one, right? But
Yeah.
that's probably too
Hmm.
late to eat. So
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think the 8 is a representation of like infinity and wealth. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like there's a thing with like, oh, like if you get a fish tank, you must have 8 fish in there. Like it can't
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
7,
yeah.
it can't be 6, but it has to be exactly 8 fish because
Yeah.
when you have 8 fish, it brings in money, it brings in wealth, it brings in abundance. So
Yeah.
yeah. And there's also like, with Chinese New Year's, there's like a lot of like superstition too. Like there's a things that you must not do. Like during
What,
Chinese New
for
Year's,
example?
you can't have discussions about money. Yeah, like you can't like
Okay.
argue. Yeah, like if even if you're feeling angry about a situation, like it's better to suppress it because if you argue, you bring in bad luck, you bring in bad energy
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah,
space for that new year. So yeah,
yeah.
there's quite a few. Yeah, it's also like it's best to go to sleep early during Chinese
Mhm.
New Year's. Yeah, so I'm not really quite sure why that is. I remember my
Mhm.
mom explained it to me, but I vaguely remember it has something to do with the spirits. You don't want to anger the spirits or something like that by going to
Yeah,
bed
yeah,
too
yeah.
late. Yeah, so it's kind of like 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock would be the rule of thumb. Yeah,
Oh,
so.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of traditions really around like chasing away the bad spirits. I think that's also
Hmm.
where all the love for fireworks on Chinese New Year came as well.
Yeah.
Is
Uh-huh.
that something
Yeah.
that you see in New York with the Chinese community as well, or not so much? Because in China, I
We
mean, it's
do.
this used to be
Yeah.
all over the place.
So we have like so fireworks in New York City is illegal.
Right.
But on Chinese years on that day, we could use firecrackers. So the little red firecrackers,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
red
yeah,
tubed ones. So we use that. And also a lot of people just use those like New Year's like confetti and they just shoot it in the air. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
something
yeah,
that
yeah.
really fun. But we used to do fireworks before it became illegal, but we don't really do that anymore. But people still break the law here. They still do it anyway. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they still do it
Can't
anyway.
help
Uh,
themselves.
they can't help themselves. Yeah. So yeah, you'll see like especially in the New York Chinatowns, you'll see like red paper like everywhere on the floor during Chinese New Year's.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just really
From the
festive and
firecrackers, right?
from the firecrackers and there's also like
Yeah.
lanterns like hanging up on the streets. I'm not yeah, I wasn't here for Chinese New Year's last year, but the year before I think there was firecrackers. I think there was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to yeah, it's really hard to say because like, you know, so the fireworks laws here are really strict, but then some people break it anyway. Yeah. Some
Yeah,
people break it anyway.
now in China, where when I was there for Chinese New Year, like 12 years ago, or even more than that, 15 years ago, there was tons of firecrackers and fireworks everywhere. And now it became illegal, at least in the big cities, it's
Really?
actually enforced. But
Oh,
then they go to the, nearby towns or whatever, just on the
uh,
periphery of the big cities, and they just use shitloads of
oh,
fireworks over there. I remember I was invited to a friend's place in Zhengzhou in Henan province in China.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and they all lived in the city, but his grandfather used to live like in a little town, like 20 minutes outside of the main city.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they celebrated the Chinese New Year's Eve. And
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point, they just showed me, they took me outside and said, okay, this is everything that we got for today. And they brought in like tons of ammunition. I can't use a
Oh,
different word, like crazy stuff, like, would make Israeli Independence Day fireworks feel like it's a little kid's firework for birthday
yeah.
or something. So yeah,
I
that's
remember.
but nowadays they don't let them do it in the big cities, I think, at all.
Yeah.
But they use like what's it called? Like drone shows and stuff like that
Oh,
instead,
that's fun.
which is also pretty cool.
Oh, you know, as a kid, I have this vague memory of my family taking us out into this open field.
Yeah.
So at that time, Dongguan, it was more of a village, but now it's a major city. Yeah, it's a
It's a
really
big
big
city now,
city.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they took us out into this big field, and I remember my uncle had this big several boxes of big fireworks and firecrackers, and we
Yeah,
just
yeah,
do it
yeah.
out in that field. Yeah. Actually, that was one of my fondest memories because I remember that was, I think at that time I was 6 years old. That was the first time I've ever saw fireworks. Yeah, from what I
Oh, yeah, yeah,
recall. And I was
yeah.
like, oh, you know,
That's spectacular when
yeah,
you're not sure what to
yeah,
expect, and then all
yeah,
these colors
yeah,
come out and it's pretty crazy.
uh-huh, yeah,
Yeah, wow. That sounds like
mm-hmm,
fun. Yeah, I remember, back then I was also surprised with just how much that can go off, but at the same time, when I was in Zhengzhou, a friend of mine sent me pictures from Beijing where
mm-hmm.
they burned one of the major like landmark buildings, new buildings in Beijing. One of them burned. It started fire because of fireworks, and people
Oh,
fireworks, and I don't even know exactly how it happened, but it was a famous story. It was kind of funny. I'm not sure if that's why they stopped it, but they say that now it's not happening that much.
I mean, that could be possible. Especially with the architecture and the way that the streets are laid out in China, it's a little bit weird because the houses, the buildings kind of sit on top of each other. So I could
Yeah,
see
yeah,
why
yeah,
maybe, you know, there's no really a lot of open space and the fireworks could get caught on some
yeah, yeah,
houses.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess
So
that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Gary, you mentioned cleaning, and you mentioned, of course, the food, which is
Hmm.
probably the most important part of the celebration. Also, kind of like in Jewish holidays as well.
Hmm.
Uh, what other traditions come to mind when you think about things that you do for every
Yeah.
Chinese New Year?
I remember others, but we don't really like I don't really do it anymore. I don't think my mom does it anymore. But as a young kid, I remember that before Chinese New Year's, you must get a haircut, okay?
Hmm.
You must have a new outfit of clothing. Yeah, like
Yeah,
you must
yeah,
have
yeah.
something new. So everything is pretty much like, you're going into the new year, like you're walking to the new year, like as a new person, whether if you're an
Come
older person
fresh. Yeah,
that's getting their hair dyed or like,
yeah,
just cutting your nails, these little things, like you have to like do
yeah,
these
yeah,
little
yeah.
things to just step into New York just completely as a brand new person. But for me, I
Hmm.
haven't done that in a while. It just even the other day, I was like, oh, like, why don't I just get a new shirt? But, I kind of missed the mark already. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because you have to do everything before the new year starts. Yeah. You have to do everything
Ah,
before the new
okay.
year starts, basically.
And
In
today it
my
starts.
family, you do. Yeah. So it starts for my family today. Yeah. So
You
I
don't
don't
have
know.
time to go today before dinner. It doesn't count like the last minute kind of.
It doesn't. Yeah, even like my mom, like just the other, it's just and, on Friday, she's like, you must finish cleaning everything by
Ah,
Sunday,
okay.
which was yesterday. Like you
Yeah,
have to
yeah, yeah,
like you cannot do it when it starts. So I don't know. It's strange. I also like I'm trying to think like like where the extra day came from. So I don't know if that's like a Malaysian tradition or something like that.
yeah. Mm,
Yeah. Because also when I go to my Malaysian family side, the food is completely different. It's not the same as what my mom does. Yeah,
really
and
interesting.
the food is like more spicy. Yeah. So let's say
Interesting.
if my Malaysian family is cooking, the whole house will smell like chili powder. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
good actually. That sounds good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the food in Guangdong is known to be relatively sweet, let's say,
It's
not so
sweet.
spicy
Yeah.
compared to other places in
Yeah.
China.
So, the way that my mom cooks, she'll put sugar in the food. Yeah,
Yeah,
she'll
yeah,
put
yeah,
sugar
yeah,
in the
yeah.
food and then some salt and stuff like that. But yeah, it's usually sweeter in southern China with the food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Interesting. And
Hmm.
are there any other differences between the Malaysian traditions, which again, just to first of all, I think in Malaysia a lot of people celebrate Chinese New Year. I think even if they're not necessarily like ethnically Chinese, but definitely the
Yeah.
ethnically Chinese folks do.
Yeah, I know from my Malaysian family, they say that the Hindus and also the Arabs in Malaysia also celebrate Chinese New Year's too. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
really interesting. So everyone kind of gets in on it.
Hmm.
In Malaysia, it's kind of like an open door policy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Israel, like everyone's family there. Everyone's
Yeah.
just family. Like I have my door open for you. Like if you need to come to my place just to get salt or sugar, you're welcome. You're free to come in. It's your home too. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that in
Yeah. Yeah.
Malaysia. So everyone's like invited. I've never experienced Chinese New Year's in Malaysia, but if I were to think about differences, I would say that the food is really different. Yeah, the
Yeah.
food is really different. It's more like I would say more loud because the
Mm.
Malaysians like to really, talk a lot and gossip. And also, they like to drink a lot too. Not like
Mm.
Chinese people. I mean, Chinese people do drink, but they don't really overdrink. But the Malaysians overdrink. They drink a lot.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
Chinese New Year is a very festive occasion, so it's probably a good opportunity to drink to drink quite a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, because like my Chinese families they're not really drinkers. They don't really drink. But on
Hmm.
Chinese New Year's, on that, and during that, period, they'll have something a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
To raise a
Yeah.
toast at least.
To raise a
Yeah.
toast. But I did notice like kind of like parallels like with the red envelopes with my Chinese family. Like they'll usually like put like $5 in there in the
Uh-huh.
red envelope, but my Malaysian family puts like $20 in there.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like the Chinese people might be a little bit cheaper or something like that, but my Malaysian side of the family they'll give more money. Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll give
more,
more money.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's also a
yeah,
matter nowadays of mainly symbolism, I think, right? I mean, for
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of doing it for the tradition more than anything
Yeah,
else.
they do for the tradition. I noticed that over the years, like they've been giving like less and less and less. I think it's also due to like, now the cost of living is more, inflation and stuff like that. So over the years, it's become less, especially starting from like COVID and stuff like that. It gradually became like, some of my family members, I remember they gave me $2. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, but I can't get anything with $2 in New York, you know? So
Yeah. Maybe a bottle of water. There you
yeah,
go,
maybe
making
it's
sure
just a
you won't
bottle
get
of
back.
water. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
Gary, do you think like that there is I mean, do you feel like Chinese New Year celebrations in New York differ for those who are first generation Americans or were born in America, like yourself, compared to those who are, let's say, more recent immigrants? Do you see difference in the celebrations or the importance that they attach to it?
Mm. Well, let's say for the older generation immigrants and the new immigrants, I don't really see a difference, but American born Chinese people, yeah, it's a little different. Yeah. So I noticed with my friends, they don't really usually celebrate the whole 14-day, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Period.
celebration.
Yeah.
But yeah, but mostly like on the first day, they'll have like a big dinner, like a big potluck or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And usually these American families, like these American born Chinese families, one of the things that I noticed is that, with my friends, with my Chinese friends, they won't do a deep cleaning. They won't clean the house or
Mm.
something like that. But they
Okay.
will want to, they will, try to bring in the attentions of putting up like the little, the signs, like bringing good luck, the red signs and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah,
bringing
yeah,
good
yeah.
luck. But I don't really see a whole lot of difference with the generations. I haven't really kept track of that or looked at that.
Yeah.
But I do notice, especially with the American-born Chinese, a lot of the American-born Chinese people don't really. Some of them don't really celebrate it unless it's
Mm.
like the parents say, "Oh, it's Chinese New Year's," and then they're like, "Oh, I didn't know."
Yeah.
So for some of the people, the tradition's kind of like going
Wear
away.
off or something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
a
but
matter of assimilation as well, like there's also a lot of
yeah.
Jews in the States that don't necessarily celebrate, or if they will celebrate, they will celebrate because their parents want them to, or
Mm,
something like that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's kind of nice to keep that tradition, to see. I always said, like, do you put the red signs on the doors with the blessings and all that stuff? I mean,
Yeah, my mom does it. Also, she does another thing where she brings in orchids and stuff like that and flowers, and she makes a big vase of it.
ah,
And
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so that's a tradition that she also does every year. And then
Mm.
on these orchids or these flowers, she'll put like red envelopes on it. She'll like tie red envelopes on it
Ah, nice.
just to
Yeah.
show that okay, this year it's gonna blossom with like wealth and abundance and luck and joy and
Yeah.
love, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's another thing, bringing the like new flowers and stuff like that. Yeah,
That's
red
cool.
flowers. Yeah, red flowers or pink flowers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Red
Mm-hmm.
is the best lucky color, right? And
It's a
pink is
lucky color.
kind
Mm-hmm.
of a red, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
probably some gold twist to it as well. Gold is
Yes,
also a favorite
gold.
around this time.
Yeah, also around this time, my family eats also a lot of chocolate. Also, there's something with the chocolate. I don't know what it is, but I think it's also has something to bring in luck too. Yeah, I
Maybe it's to
forgot.
be to have a sweet new year like we have with the honey in Christmas,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Maybe something
Like,
along those lines.
yeah, because we have a lot. Yeah, we eat a lot of chocolate during this time. Yeah, a lot of chocolate.
But so there's never a bad reason to eat chocolate the way I see it.
No, yeah.
And so typically you would go like to celebrate at your mom's place or at your parents' house, and then
Yeah,
most of the people go to watch the lions dance or the dragons dance in
yeah,
Chinatown. That's probably
yeah.
a lot of fun.
even like just like just like Caucasians and African Americans and Latin people, they all go there too, just to have just to
Yeah.
enjoy the celebration. And yeah, and the Manhattan Chinatown, the biggest Chinatown in New York, that's the biggest
Mhm.
celebration.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things is
In
that
Canal
when
Street,
the
right?
yeah, Canal Street is the main street in Chinatown.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
then there's like also like another famous street, Mulberry Street and Mott Street. That's
Yeah.
another famous street.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things about the lion dance and also the dragon dance is when they go into the shops. Yeah, to
Ah,
bless
okay.
each of the shops. Yeah, that's my
Oh, nice.
favorite. And a lot of these shops hang like a big lettuce like down from like
Mm-hmm.
the awnings, and
Mm-hmm.
and they try to catch the lettuce, which is like a sign of like luck and stuff like that.
Good luck. Oh,
I like
nice.
watching that. Yeah. And
That's
also
cool.
a lot of people put red envelopes in the dragon or the lion for a sign
Mm-hmm.
of luck too. Yeah, just to give them,
Mm.
money, to bring that in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So who are the folks that are orchestrating those dances? Do you know? Like who's actually inside that lion?
well,
It's just random folks that volunteer, or is it like
yeah, they're from like non I think they're from like nonprofit organizations in Chinatown, and usually these are like young kids that do it, like in their teenagers.
Hmm.
Yeah, teenagers
Oh,
that do
okay.
it, young adults. But there's there's a lot of them in Chinatown,
Yeah.
So a lot of these groups are coming together just to celebrate, during Chinese New Year's. Yeah. So it's also like the same, that goes for the Brooklyn Chinatown and Sunset Park, and then the Queens Chinatown and Flushing. And so it's the
Hmm.
same celebration. Yeah, it's the same
Very cool.
celebration. Hmm.
Very cool. So we have the year of the dragon ending now, and the year of the snake is coming. Does it
Yeah.
say much to you? Like, how do you see that?
I do believe that, even like looking at like Western astrology, this is a really, really big year, a very lucky year for a lot of people. Yeah.
Mm.
Just basically old cycles closing out, new cycles beginning, birthing a new version of yourself. So yeah, I see a lot of parallels. I see a lot, the stake is a representation of shedding old skin, so it's so
Mm.
interesting that it's kind of like, intertwining with like the Western astrology, shedding of your own
Yeah,
skin
yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah.
birthing this new version of yourself. Yeah. So I feel like this is a very big transitional year for everyone. And also it's just a collective, for the world. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it feels like this, it actually feels like this. I mean, with the elections in the US and
it's been a huge
everything
shift.
that's
Yeah.
gone now in Israel, it feels like
Hmm.
we're starting something new and very different. And I hope and believe that also would be very, very good.
No, I think it'll be a good year. I mean, I'm noticing, a huge shift with Israel too, just with, everything that went on like in October and November and December. And now
Hmm.
things are starting to, the dust is starting to settle. Things are starting to
Yeah,
hopefully get back to normal. Yeah. And, and then hopefully the war is going to be over for good. Yeah. So
amen to that. And looking forward
mhm.
to see you in Israel soon, Gary, when you
Very
come to visit
soon.
after Chinese New Year.
Hmm.
Uh, Thank you very much for your time and for
You're welcome.
taking the
Thank you for
time to
having me.
share this wonderful experience. I wish I was there to celebrate with you and go see the lion dance, but
Uh,
in the meantime, I'm very happy that we spoke.
we'll make it happen in the future. I have
I'm
a
sure we
feeling you will
will.
come to New York at some point. Yeah. So,
I'm sure we will. Thank you very
hmm.
much, Gary.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
תודה רבה שהגעתם עד כאן, תודה לגרי צ'ן היקר ששיתף איתנו קצת מהחוויות שלו על ראש השנה הסיני בניו יורק ומה זה אומר ואיך חוגגים, וקיבלנו את הטוויסט של הצד הסיני מלזי לעומת הצד הסיני מגואנגדונג. אז היה לנו כמה דברים פה שאפילו אני ככה הופתעתי לשמוע, ומקווה שהיה לכם מעניין. עד הפעם הבאה, צייג'ן.